We will start then. Good evening, everyone. I'm Leah Mulhearn, and I will be chairing tonight's Educational Affairs meeting, September 19th, the first meeting of the 2023-2024 school year. We have, at first, I will take a roll call. We go around the table. Ms. Haywood?
Present. Ms. Levin, present.
Charles Brown is present.
Dan Schultz, present. Zachary Epps, present.
David Cohen, present.
I am present as well. And I do not believe we have any minutes to pass. We do?
We do.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I lost track.
From the June meeting.
Yes, we did. It's been a long time. We had a nice break. Can I please have, they were sick, you're right. Can I have a motion to pass the June Ed Affairs meeting minutes? Second, Julie, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. We are rusty here. And with that, we will move on to our agenda. We have two agenda items tonight. The first is an overview of the 2023-2024 agenda for Ed Affairs meetings. We did this last year as well, to go through all 8 or not 9 meetings, whatever it is, 10 meetings. It's a lot of meetings. Each one, what the topics will be, who they are intended for. While that does not limit anyone from attending, they're all public meetings, and we may add to different months as topics come up of importance. And the second agenda item will be an overview of the federal programs that we use in Cheltenham. And both items will be presented by Dr. Smith and the Office of Education. Dr. Smith.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As stated, our first presentation tonight is just an overview to give everyone an idea of what to expect from the Educational Affairs Committee for the year. I will also add that while these agenda items are set for the year, that does not stop us from adding additional items as things come up during the year, but this is what it is currently as of today. And again, for those of you who are joining for the first time, these meetings on educational affairs are organized and presented by the Office of Education. Our school board of director committee chairs for this committee are Jennifer Lohman and Leah Mulhearn. The topic for September 19th, 2023, which is tonight, the topic is federal programs as well as our Ed Affairs agenda. I'll be the person who is facilitating, and our target audience is the Cheltenham Elementary School, Myers Elementary, and Elkins Park School families, just because they have a specific role in title programming. And I'll get into more detail when I get to those particular slides. And just so you all know, federal programming funding, make sure that it helps to finance some of our programming here in the school district to make sure that all of our students are equitably served. So it does not allow poverty to be a barrier to students receiving a quality instructional program here in the Cheltenham School District. In October, we will have a summative data presentations. Those facilitators for that particular month will be our building principals, supported by the Office of Education. And basically, everyone will have an idea of how our students performed in the spring PSSA administration, as well as Keystone exams. So principals will give you that information and also give you some insight into what they're working on in order to either improve some of the areas or to continue with some of the areas where there was success. In November, we have our MTSS presentation that will be led by Ms. Keene, our Director of Student Services. And essentially, Ms. Keene is coming back, as we have done multiple years, to give you an update on MTSS, and specifically for this school year, to talk about ways that Ms. Keene's office has led all of our schools in having a more cohesive and congruent programming with MTSS, so that when students, especially from our K-4 buildings, lead up into Elkins Park, that there is some consistency on how students are serviced. And when they get to Elkins Park, we continue those services as well, based on the MTSS framework. December 19th, we will have our Cheltenham High School course recommendations. We will have the leadership team from Cheltenham High School come before us and present any new course recommendations that they have for the new school year. This date is chosen so that the school board of directors have an opportunity to review the courses, to review the recommendations, to possibly send back recommendations to the high school team in enough time to have those courses approved and ready to go for students for course selection in the spring. January 16th, we will have our first presentation on the strategic plan to give an update as to where we are with the strategic plan. The facilitators will be basically everyone who leads a pillar or one of the pillars of the strategic plan. So you'll hear from not only the Office of Education on this night, you'll also hear from some of our administrators on the operational side of the district. They'll be speaking to where they are with their goals, how things are going. And as we all know, all elements of the strategic plan are for the benefit of our children and families here in Cheltenham. So this will be one of those nights where you'll see all of the pieces that contribute to the success of the district working together and doing a joint presentation. In February, we will have our special education department updates led by our new director of special education, Dr. Catherine Bone. He will also be joined in this presentation by our supervisors of special education, and he will give a review and an overall review of what's happening in special education at this point in the year. We do not have any details at this point because we do want this to be a timely and relevant presentation. So we have not put in specific topics. We want to know by February, we should know by February, the mid-year point, what are some of the things that we believe have risen to the occasion to really highlight during that particular meeting. In March, we will hear from our Department of Innovation. We will hear their initiatives and updates. As everyone knows at this point, we've had a very heavy focus on STEM here in the district. We've done a lot over in my few years here with STEM, and we're also trying to be one of the front runners as it pertains to innovation, so making sure we stay on top of the latest and the greatest that have been proven to give our students better opportunities and stronger educational outcomes. In April, myself and also Ms. Collins, we will come before you with a revamped and renewed elementary report card. We have heard for many years that the elementary report card needed a new facelift to really speak to what we're expecting students to be able to know and relative grades, and also to give families an idea beyond a letter grade, beyond a number, really standards-based, what students are doing really well in areas they may need some additional support. The good thing with the elementary report card, this was not done exclusively by the Office of Education. We had a lot of help and heavy lifting from our elementary teachers, K through 6, which is important because our 5-6 teachers, they know what they're expecting from students as they enter from the K through 4 continuum. So I would recommend that anyone with children in grades K through 4 come out to this particular meeting to see the new report card, to see how students are being assessed, and to give any feedback or input that is necessary for us to move on before we get approval to move forward. In May, our principals will come back again. This is kind of part 2, if you will, to the October data presentation. So October, they kind of tell you where we are, how we're starting the year. And by May, they should give an update. They will give an update of where they are in the form of school improvement plans to really show that all of their plans are data focused, data based, and what they've done to address some of the things that the data has told them about some practices or some instructional foci that they should have in their respective buildings. And again, that presentation will be assisted by the Office of Education, but led by our 7 building principals. And last but not least, our final year 1 strategic plan update. In June, we are expecting to give you a full 1 year where we are, how we fared with the strategic plan. Again, everyone who led a pillar will be back for this particular presentation, just to give a comprehensive overview of how we ended year 1 and some preview information as to how we're going to go into year 2. We'll talk about metrics, we'll talk about goals that have been met, and Dr. Scriven has highlighted that this is meant to be a fluid process and meant to be a document that ebbs and flows with the needs of the district. So if there are any changes or updates that need to be made, they will be discussed at that time. And again, as Ms. Mulhearn started off the meeting by saying, even though we give you the targeted audience for each of these presentations, these are public meetings. Everyone from the Cheltenham School District community is more than welcome to attend. We give the targeted audience just because we know that families and our parents and caregivers, they have different time schedules to really help them zone in. If I have to go to a meeting, these are the ones I go to. If I have to miss a meeting, here's a meeting I may be able to miss, but everyone is invited to all of the meetings that take place. If you can't make it to the live meeting in person or online, all of our recordings as well as copies of the presentation are available on our website. And with that, I will turn things back over to Chair Mulhearn.
Yep. Are there any questions from the board? Thank you, Dr. Smith, for the presentation.
Still love the format, the fact that we're doing this and putting it out for the community to see and recognize, and also board members as well. But I know that you're right, there are specific topics that the community, that certain pockets of the community will want to discuss. Those are most relevant to them and their experience, not to all the stuff you just said. But for all those reasons, I think, again, as one board member, I appreciate that. And as a community member, I appreciate that.
Any other board questions or comments? Any questions from the public that's with us or the community on Zoom? Red. No. All right, no questions.
I think even though there is a Q&A, it's just indicating that Mr. Fishbein is on.
Oh, great. Okay. Excellent. Then with that, thank you, and we will move on to the next function.
So the second presentation tonight is our overview of federal programs. I want to open up by saying that with the overview of federal programs, we have always worked on our federal programming grants in conjunction with our comprehensive school plan, which has a full complement of teachers, of administrators, parents, and community members. Tonight's presentation, in full transparency, one of the things when we were audited with our federal programs last year, one of the things that the auditors pointed out to myself, I'm the person who leads federal programming here in the district, is while the schools who are Title I schools and federal program schools were having presentations and telling their families how the funds were going to be spent and basically giving a presentation, the local education agency, LEA / the Cheltenham School District, we needed to do something more so at the district level. So I want to make sure that you all know that moving forward, this will be kind of a standing agenda item at some point where we do present this so that the community knows how much we're receiving in federal funds and how we're spending those federal funds. And again, this was happening at the school level. We've never done it at a district level. So this is to make sure that when we have that audit, we try to make sure that we always respond and don't make the same mistake twice. And that's one of the things that we recited, is that we didn't have this public presentation at the district level. So this will, so when the audit comes up and they ask, did you share this with the public? We'll be able to show the recording, the presentation to show that this took place at the district level, in addition to what the 3 schools are doing at their buildings. So with that, the Cheltenham School District, we receive 4 primary sources of federal funding: Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV. Title I, and I apologize in advance for reading to everyone with this, but just because we're recording this and people at home are listening as well, it might be in my best interest to do so tonight. So Title I is improving the academic achievement of the disadvantaged. Title II is primarily focused on preparing, training, and recruiting high-quality teachers and principals. Title III deals mostly with our students who are English language learners or immigrants who are new to the United States. And Title IV, student support and academic enrichment is the focus. And we do receive funding in all 4 categories. Title I comes directly out of the Every Student Succeeds Act. And basically, it requires the federal government to support schools and school districts that have high numbers of students who are economically disadvantaged. And schools in which children from low-income families make up at least 40% of the enrollment are eligible to use Title I funds and operate school-wide programs that serve children in these schools. So just really quickly, there are 2 types of ways that you can enact the Title I funding. You can either do targeted programs or school-wide programs. When I first came to the Cheltenham School District, we primarily did targeted. And with targeted programming, you essentially identify students in the building who need additional help, additional assistance, who also, based on data, have shown that they need additional help. With the school-wide programming that we have now, we can use Title I funds to benefit the entire school. And one of the things that makes it for us more advantageous is it isn't going towards certain kids or certain students, and certain students don't get singled out, if you will. This is for everyone. We make sure that we build up the entire building as opposed to focusing on certain children. So again, we're a Title I school-wide programs district. And again, we use this to upgrade the entire educational program, not just students who aren't doing well. These funds are going towards the improvement and the increased student outcomes for all students. However, the primary goal is still to make sure that we focus on students who have not met the mark and who we believe are not achieving at the levels in which they should achieve, and specifically at the state academic standards level. And the basic requirements is that we use all of our resources to upgrade the entire educational program in the school. So what that means is we're not just depending on federal funds to do what we need to do in our schools. This is a coordinated effort. This is a supplement to what we're already doing at the state level as well as at the local level. Again, we're ensuring that all of our children meet the all children meet the core academic standards, especially those who have shown poor performance. But again, with school-wide programming, we don't have to focus solely on those kids, but they are, if you will, our primary focus. And then again, we have to have an approved plan in order to enact a school-wide program. So we can operate a school-wide program if at least 40% of the children are from low-income families. So you will see the 3 schools that meet this criteria do meet this particular threshold. And also we must explain how this is going to meet the needs, not only of all of our students, but specifically the best needs of the students who have shown low performance. This slide gives some bullets of some allowable use of funds. The Title I funds can be used for mentoring programs. They can be used for and will be used for parent and family engagement, for assessments, extended learning opportunities, tutoring before or after school, field trips, anything educational that is going to improve student outcomes. Even if it's student services, things that typically come out of Ms. King's office can also be funded using Title I funds. And that's just, these are just a few things. There are other things that you could fold underneath kind of sub bullets, but anything that upgrades the curriculum, credit recovery, incorporates well-rounded education to make sure that students have all the pieces that they need to be successful, we can utilize Title I funding for that. Also, the plan shall be regularly reviewed and revised at least annually, which we do here in the Cheltenham School District. And I kind of alluded to this earlier. Title I funds must supplement, not supplant. It can't be that we buy these pencils with Title I money, because if we don't have Title I money, they won't have pencils. It can't be that. It could be we buy pencils with some fancier erasers. You're going to supplement. You can't say that the only way, or you can't create the conditions that the only way you can afford certain things that the kids need come from, it must come from federal programming. And so when we complete our grant, that's one of the things I had to work with our business manager on, is to outline how we create building level budgets so that we do supplement and not supplant. So it's more than just an educational criteria that must be met. We must also show from a business office perspective how we fund our schools so that this does not become a crutch for us. The plan is evaluated by the school with the assistance of the LEA. So that's what I was speaking to earlier, that our schools have been really diligent at the school level about doing the work of Title I. Our office has been really diligent about monitoring that. One of the missing pieces, again, was to do this public, larger group presentation to let everyone know what all the schools are doing. Because if you were to go to one school, you will only hear about what's happening in federal programs at that one particular school. Tonight, you'll hear about all of the schools that qualify. Parent and family engagement is an absolutely critical and required pillar of Title I, especially because of the benefits of having parental involvement. Students succeed at higher rates. People are, it doesn't say this, but parents are happier, students are happier when there's a partnership between home and school. And one of the pillars of Title I does require that we have more communication and more engagement with our families. And specifically, since these schools service some of our most disadvantaged students. So LEAs, again, that's our local education agency / CSD in this case, receiving $500,000 or more. We must set aside 1% for parent engagement, and 90% of that 1% must be spent at the building level. So that means 10% could be, in theory, spent at the central office level. And yes, we do receive more than $500,000 here in the Cheltenham School District. And I will tell you, since I've been here, the number tends to go up every year. Last year, it was approximately, and I'm just going off the top of my head, last year it was about $538,000. This year, it is $758,000 to change, so it went up significantly. And so that's saying, to whom much is given, much is required. So the more money we get, the more work we have, and the more responsibility we have with record keeping. And so I put together this chart to kind of capture how we allocated our, we haven't spent anything yet, how we allocated our instruction and other expenditures for Title I. The total for instruction and other expenditures is $738,000. So as you know, the big bucket is $758,000. So we're missing about $20,000 or so. But we allocated $738,000 to instruction and other expenditures. This is to kind of show you that the bulk of our money was spent on direct instruction and directly impacting students. So our 3 Title I schools are Cheltenham Elementary, Myers Elementary, Elkins Park Elementary. Those funds are allocated not based on size, not based on the number of students. It is based on the poverty level at each school. So because of the poverty level at each school, Cheltenham Elementary, you have to rank your schools and prioritize them. They have their first, Myers is second, Elkins Park is third, and then the funds follow in that same hierarchy, where Cheltenham gets the most money, Myers is in the middle, and then EP is last. So sometimes people get confused. Well, EP is a larger school, it has more kids. It's about the percentage of poverty, and that's how they get ranked. So that's where the monies come from. $700,000 of the $738,000 is going towards our curriculum and instruction specialists. So the reading specialists and the math specialists that are at these schools, they are being paid for out of Title I funds. They do not come out of the district's general fund. $18,000 of the 738 goes towards research-based mathematics and reading resources at all 3 schools. Those 3 schools, they select the reading and math resources that they want for their particular school based on their data, based on their population. So for example, we use the Envision mathematics program elementary-wide, K through 6. These schools have the opportunity to pick something else or use another resource to add to supplement Envision, not to supplant, to supplement. $18,843 goes towards school enrichment programming and tutoring. That's before tutoring, before school tutoring, after school tutoring, and now since we're post pandemic or post COVID, we also have some virtual options that these schools can use to pay for as well out of these funds. And the last small bucket you see, $1,157. We have to split some of these federal funds with our non-public schools. So there is one student who attends the Myers School and is in a private school setting. Those particular monies go towards that school for that particular student. And just so you all know, we still have the same level of record keeping and documentation for those schools as well. We're required to visit the site. We're required to follow the same process that we follow here in the district to purchase things. So for example, during COVID, when we had to share some of those funds, the ESSER funds with our private schools, most of them ordered Chromebooks. We have to order the Chromebooks, make sure that we do the same requisitions, the same process to purchase, and then we check in with those schools to say, hey, did you get your Chromebook? A couple I hand delivered because one of the schools is close to my house. And so we just kind of check in with them to see how things are going, how the equipment is working. And so we don't always, they don't always buy equipment. Sometimes they buy services. So we also check in with the service providers to see and to make sure that the services have been provided. And also we ask for outcome data to make sure that there is some growth or there is some improvement. So the other expenditures that were used with our Title I funds, the remaining $20,000 and some change, again, that hierarchy still exists with Cheltenham Elementary having the bulk of the money, having the higher number, then Myers, then Elkins Park. So the 3 schools all split $7,589 for parent and family engagement. And that is that 1% that you have to spend on parent and family engagement once you reach a certain number. Again, they also have another $10,000 put towards research-based mathematics and reading resources. We have some student support services and supplies that will total $3,157. And again, our one lonely student, his $12 is for parent and family engagement that had to be put into that particular area. So that's Title I. Title II is district focused. You don't have Title II or Title III or Title IV schools. These next few titles, they apply to the entire Cheltenham School District.
Hey,
And
you want to see if you have questions with Title I first before you jump to Title II? Because it's a lot of
It is a lot. That's fine. I'm not opposed.
It's up to you.
Are there any more questions about what we've heard so far about Title I specifically? Mr. Sean?
So with Title I recognizing that 3 of the schools, including EP, meet the 40% threshold, I'm curious about how close Cedarbrook and the high school are in terms of being near 40%. Notably because Hawkins Park is obviously at or above 40%. In terms of, is there, in the foreseeable future, what's the potential likelihood that those might also become Title I schools?
I can tell you that Cedarbrook missed the cut by like 0.00 something. It was really close. So and Mr. Metcalf, he's always pushing for his school and fighting for everything. But he called me. He was just like, I can't believe they barely missed it. And so I'm not a math person. I probably shouldn't say that because I'm educated. Strike that from the record. I don't, math is not my primary focus. But when we make these calculations, everybody at the table should be safe in knowing that I don't calculate, that this is put into the computer system and they give us the numbers. So I had to stress that to a couple of principals. I don't make the numbers up. I don't do it. We just feed it and they tell us based on the data you've given us. And that data comes from Ms. Scriven, who is our data system specialist. We get the data from her and put it into the system. And then they tell us, based on the data you provided, these are the schools that are eligible, and they give us the order also from 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth.
And thank you. My second question is, the numbers here is just for the current school year?
Correct.
School year?
23-24 school year.
Thank you, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Loman?
I just gonna ask a clarification. Could you just explain how we determine eligibility for Title I, the Title I percentage?
We use our don't tell me I know this. We use our reduced reduced lunch percentages.
She gave a full explanation before the meeting. All the requirements.
Yeah,
Sometimes
I just
Right.
She said one time that was.
Yeah, right. No, before the meeting.
yes, that's
Yeah.
how it's determined.
Ms. Haywood?
Yes, Dr. Smith, you had Title I, Part A. Is there any distinction for Part A versus Part B?
So that's specific to the Cheltenham School District, and that's specific to Title I because there's a full code. So it's Title I-A because it's a bigger part. It's a smaller part of a larger grant because this is all federal programs. So it helps you to drill down to which one we're talking about in particular. So it's always Title I-A for us in this context.
And are there prescribed, I wouldn't say curriculum, but a prescribed approach to the parental engagement?
So there isn't
There
isn't a prescribed approach, but I will tell you is when we submit our applications and we say we're going to do certain things or try to meet certain goals, they do review it and make sure that what we're using are research-based things. So one of the things that we're using this year to gauge whether or not we've met our parental engagement goal is our new perception data, because that's something we do at the beginning, something that we do at the end. So we're going to use something that we already have, a tool that we're already using to show whether or not parents feel more engaged, whether they feel more involved, because we have that survey that's already, teed up for us. So that's what we'll be using to gauge parental involvement. Again, we'll do that at the beginning, we'll do it at the end. We did it last year as well. So we can show growth and show trends, things of that nature. And that's required.
Mr. Schultz?
Yeah, thank you for this presentation, and I'm learning a lot here.
Not done yet.
Great, this beginning of presentation. For the things that we do in these schools funded by Title I that we find are effective, is there a path? I know it can't be supplanting, it's supplement, not supplant, so it's kind of like a tension there, but replicating in other schools that aren't Title I schools, but hey, these curriculum and instruction specialists are really knocking it out of the park and having an impact.
So we have done that during my tenure here. We have had people say, well, this school has this and they really like it and the teachers ran and raved, can we get it in our regular programs? And we do that. Okay. But we always remind people, if you get something, you have to give something. So what are you willing to give up to get this extra thing because you may not have additional funding to do so, which is what, it makes sense that that's why federal program it differentiates certain schools from the other financially from what they have in their budget.
And that also addresses that second tension, so thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board, from the public? Yes, can you please state your name and your location in the township?
Hi, Ross Whiting, Elkins Park. Slide 27 talks about evaluation, which is a particular area of interest of mine. It says to determine if the program is effective, increasing academic achievement of students to meet the state's academic standards, the program must be evaluated, particularly for those students who are not achieving the standards. Given that the Title I program is particularly focused on low-income students who are often underrepresented and marginalized in a variety of intersectional ways, I'm curious what the evaluation methods are and if that data are available for us to examine as a group to see if there's like positive changes amongst those groups and interventions, et cetera.
So everything that you'll see in October and also when the principals present again, will speak to that because again, we use the school-wide programming model. So all of the benchmark data, the end of unit tests, what the reading and math specialists do with our students, all of those things will be used to determine. And again, when we submit our application, they ask you, how are you going to determine growth? And we give them that in advance. We do benchmarks. We also have end of year exams. We don't typically weigh heavy on PSSA and Keystone, but we could.
So there's slightly different data, if I'm hearing you correctly, collected for Cheltenham, Myers, and Elkins Park School, given that they're Title I schools in particular.
So could be. So for example, I know that the Myers schools uses the iReady program.
Yes.
And the other K-4s don't. So that's additional data that Myers would have to contribute to this conversation that another school doesn't.
So iReady is one of the examples of a supplemental material. That's okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Riley. And we can move on. Thanks.
In Title II, as you saw earlier, is less money, so it's not it's not as exhaustive as Title I, but that is still a nice amount of money for us to again to supplement some of what we do here in the district. And so Title II again is 100% federally funded. And it is basically trying to make sure that we have highly qualified teachers as well as administrators, and that we support that they remain highly qualified and have the support that they need. And we also are responsible for our private schools that are in our township. For example, like St. Luke's Catholic School is in our township. That's one of our non-public schools that we communicate with. And just so, and I don't know if I made this clear, we meet with all of these schools annually, once a year, either in person, now via Zoom, and we talk to them about, here's how much you have, what would you like to spend, what are your goals, how are you going to show us that you achieved your goals, so on and so forth. So we have to have these meetings, and we have to upload evidence of having had those meetings into the portal that houses all of this information. So we have to have signed documents saying that the school district and the school met, they had these conversations, we know what to do, move full speed ahead. And again, this is predominantly PD, and this is for our teachers' identified needs. The PD program for our non-public schools does not need to be the same PD program for our public schools. Even though we had this meeting, we asked them how they want to use the funds. We asked them how they're going to track everything. They do not have to do what we do. Now, sometimes we meet with them and they'll say, well, what are you all doing? And we'll say, well, this is what we've done. We've loved it. It's been successful. So sometimes these meetings are also exchanges of ideas, especially when there's more than one school in the room or in the group. We kind of all feed off of what one another is doing. Our total is $123,968. The non-public school equitable share is $32,223. And what we use the predominant amount of our funds on are our kindergarten aides, to make sure that our kindergarten students have support, and that our teachers have support with small group instruction and other things that they are doing with our students. This helps with that particular goal. And when we go, and just so you all know, there's a list of things you can spend these funds on. This was one of the things that we could spend it on, and we said, we want to make sure that we again supplement, because this does not encompass all of the kindergarten aides. This is just 4 of them, and you all know we have more than 4. But again, supplement, not supplant. Title III is $5,300. This is our title. Any questions for Title II? Okay. Title III is $5,300. And remember, this is the funds that we have allocated for our students for whom English is a second language, and also our immigrant students, because our population is not that large in this area. Just like Title I is all population driven, we have a small amount. In Title III, we are a part of a consortium with the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. And the reason why and we don't have to be a part of the consortium. Every year, we can renew the consortium, or we can go out on our own. With $5,300, in the grand scheme of things, this is a small amount of money. It is best for us to pool our resources with other districts who also have this small amount of money. So for example, if you wanted to bring in a good speaker or curriculum writers for English language learners, it could run you $10,000. Well, we don't have $10,000. But if we get with other districts, we could get this speaker to come in when we pool our resources and still possibly have change left over to do something else. So we could all put $2,000 towards the $10,000 speaker. The IU coordinates this. It's much better coordination. And they have the resources to kind of get all of the right people in the room. And so we have found that being a part of this consortium gets us a lot of discounted resources, discounted speakers, and discounted curriculum documents as a result of pooling our resources with other school districts who don't have a lot in funding in this particular area. And that's basically what I explained. Again, this also has a non-public component, and this is only from non-public schools within our boundaries. So this doesn't apply to, say, a student who may go into another county, say the Cascade Torah School in Wynwood, PA. This wouldn't qualify in that particular area. And I explained that part. Title IV, $42,000, $42,212. And this can be used for activities to support well-rounded educational opportunities. And again, remember we started off with the 3 elementary schools that were Title I. These are not specific to a school. These funds are vetted district-wide. So when you see anti-bullying initiatives, for example, that's K-12. When you see AP or dual credit, that specifically applies to the high school and any really, brilliant and high-performing Cedar Brook students. And college and career counseling is also a K-12 type of subject area. And this is how those particular funds are vetted. College and career readiness, $10,212. And with college and career readiness, that could be anything from print or digital resources, some of our college fairs that we give, or college trips that students take, or help that students need with applications, so on and so forth, can be used from that particular budget. Social emotional resources, also to accelerate learning and advanced placement, $4,200 can be put towards that. And we are obligated to give our non-public school programs $10,972 based on their enrollment. And $13,000 is left for professional development. And what I neglected to say is if at any point, for example, PD 13,000, we feel like we're not going to spend $13,000, we can do a transfer. We go into the portal and update the grant to show that we've elected to move $3,000 from there and to put it somewhere else. So those numbers can move. The bigger numbers stay the same, but we can, because we chose these allocations. If the need is no longer there or it changes, we can move the funds around. We just have to notify our federal programming people at PDE, and we also have to make sure that we again update our documentation and record keeping to reflect the change that we put more money in one area or another. And that's just Title 2, 3, and 4.
Are there any questions from the board on 2, 3, and 4?
Sorry, I have an advocacy question, which is, are there any, because these are, we as a board go to, PSBA and have advocacy at the state. Are there any items that we should be talking to our congressional representatives about, or representative about related to these programs? And that can be a question for think on it and get back later, but just insofar as we have opportunities to talk to representative team or our senators.
And what I'll say is, because we don't, and we can poll community members from the room tonight, but the recommendation is for us to have a follow-up Title I meeting, federal programs meeting in December. And I think that'll be a question that I would like to pose to the participants as we talk about where we're going, how things are going so far. Is there anything you think we need more of? Back to Mr. Cohen's question, these schools that barely missed the mark, what does that look like? So I would say I would table that for our December kind of, now that we have the funding, now that we started the programs, is this enough? Is this working? What do we need more of? What could we use more of? Thanks.
I have a quick question, Dr. McCutcheon. You, in Title II, and I don't know, it maybe applies to 2, 3, and 4. Well, the non-public schools, they're the ones that are within Cheltenham Township confines, not where the students go. And then is it just any non-public school that is in? Do we keep track of who they are? Do they come to us? Can they opt out or opt in? I'm just curious.
Good question. They can opt out. So far since I've been here, no one's opted out, even with the smallest amount of money. They'll take it because, like, even with the $12 for parent engagement, that could be an electronic newsletter. Sure. That could be something that they can use. So we haven't had anyone opt out, but that's a good question. They can. The other thing is they don't come to us. We pretty much get a list of here are the schools in your area. Here are the students that we know that live in Cheltenham that attend those schools, because for Title I, we need to know who lives here but attends one of those private schools. And then when it comes to, say, for example, the Title II and Title IV, it's based on the total enrollment of the school, not the total enrollment of how many kids who typically would go from Cheltenham to those schools. It encompasses their entire enrollment.
That amount that's left for the non-public schools is divided proportionally to those schools based on enrollment.
Yes, and so the amount that they get, like that $10,000, is based on a mathematical formula that takes into consideration how many students are enrolled in those schools. And so, yes, it is proportional to the school. So it's like whatever number times 3,000, whatever number times 500. Like Wyncote Academy, that is housed here in the district, they get a small piece of that pie, but they're a small school, so their piece is a lot smaller than a larger school.
But we're not keeping track, but you're getting a list of all the schools then.
We are keeping track in the sense of we do need to reach out to these schools and communicate with how they spend the money.
They are responsible to us, or we are responsible for how they're spending it and keeping track of it.
Correct.
To report back.
Correct. So we do have, in that sense, we do have to keep track, which is why we have those spring meetings to say, this is what we're doing, this is what you're buying, this is the documentation, and then we check in with them. We'll say, well, you said you were going to use your benchmark exams to show how this reading program is working. Can we get a copy of your benchmark exams? That's kind of what it looks like.
I have one more question about Title III, the money that goes towards ELL and then immigrant students. Am I remembering correctly that our number of students that would fall into that category has grown in the last year or so? And you don't have to tell me that now if it's not handy, but I was just thinking, I wonder if that amount has increased as well, was my thought.
No, actually, I forgot, it wasn't for the purposes of this presentation, but, or maybe it was, but I did ask that question. Hold on one second, I should be able to pull it up.
It just popped into my head.
And okay, here we go. So what I have as the EL numbers, 109 total. The bulk being at Cedarbrook, 25, Cheltenham High School, 21, EP 14, Glenside 12, Winco 14, Myers 9, and Cheltenham Elementary 14.
That's this year's.
That's this year's. I forgot why I asked for it, but I knew I could get to it because I literally just asked for it. Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, it's not a very large amount per student when you do the math, how much we get.
No, it's not.
It's very small. What do we?
Which is why we join in with the
Makes
consortium,
sense, yep.
because we get more, like I said, more bang for our buck in terms of resources, in terms of PD, in terms of speakers, and all of those things that we could do under Title I, we do as this consortium
So
to
that
get.
makes it goes a lot further that way.
Yeah, it does. It stretches a lot farther.
Thank you. Any questions from the public that's in the room with us or over Zoom? Quiet community tonight. Any other board questions? Everyone, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Smith, and your office for providing that. It's great to have this information. I know someone had asked, I think this woman had mentioned a few meetings ago, I can't remember which one. And so this is great to have all of the federal program data in one place and understanding really much better what each program does and how we use it. So, and the agenda, as Mr. Burdell Williams stated, and we've all talked about, loving having the year in advance, kind of knowing going forward, what we'll be working on. So thank you. And with that, I will take the motion to adjourn.
So.
Second. Okay. All those in favor? All right. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.